Okay, don't let the density of this code make you nervous. Break it down one line at a time.
This video is brought to you by OppiePies Academy.
First, we import NumPy. That's the numbers in Pi library that we're going to use a little bit later. I then create the student GPA's dictionary, and I create it as an empty dictionary with just these curly brackets. We print some instructions. Please enter a list of student names and corresponding GPAs, just as you saw in the output here. Then we ask the student to input their name or X to exit. Notice I use raw input because of the version of Python that I'm using. Then if the student name was not X, we ask them to input a GPA. That's going to be a floating point value. Then we loop through and we say, while the student name is not equal to X, then we're going to store in the student GPA's dictionary the student name and GPA. So student GPAs is the dictionary. Student name, which is input here, is the key. And student GPA, which is entered here, is the value. So be careful as you do this. There's 3 names to keep straight in your head. Student GPAs is our dictionary. Each time the user enters a name, it's assigned to student name. Each time the user enters a GPA, it's assigned to student GPA. That's how we get here. Student GPAs is the dictionary, student name is the key, and the value is student GPA. We then in the loop ask to re-enter another name and another GPA, and we'll keep looping through while student name is not equal to X. So as you can see over here, as soon as a capital X is entered, it exits the input module and goes to the next part of the program where it starts outputting the data and analyzing the GPAs that have been input. Here we loop through entries and display names and GPAs. So I set a variable to highest at 0 and lowest at 4.0. And then we print the class GPA list. So I use the for loop for key comma value in student GPAs dot items. That's going to return each name or key and GPA or value in the dictionary one at a time. So it goes through and says, okay, what's the key? What's the value? So we simply print key colon value. Key value. Key value. Key value. That's being printed right here as it loops through the entire dictionary. We're also figuring out which GPA is the highest and which GPA is the lowest. So here we say if the value, which is again the GPA, is higher than highest, which is initially 0, then highest will become that GPA. Same with lowest. If the value is lower than lowest, then lowest is assigned to the current GPA. So essentially we test each one to see if it's the highest or lowest value, and then we store that in variables called highest and lowest, respectively. Now, to get the average, I kind of went the longer way because you can get an average from NumPy, but I did it this way. I took GPAs as a variable, and I assigned that student GPAs dot values. What this does is it creates a list out of all of these values in the dictionary. 2.95, 2.05, 3.77, 4.0, etc. in this case. So now all the GPAs are stored in a list. I set a variable called total GPA, and then I total all the GPAs in a loop for GPA in GPAs. So in this GPAs list I just created, we go through each GPA, we add it to the total, giving us a total of all the GPAs that are entered, stored in total GPA. Then to print an average, we divide the total GPA by the length of the GPA's list, giving us an average. Don't forget your LEN function. We then output highest and lowest, which have already been calculated up here as we went through the individual GPAs in the list, and we stored them in the highest and lowest variables. Finally, for the median, the statistical median, I went to NumPy and I used its median function and I gave it GPA as the list and it calculated the median value. So when you break it down, not so difficult, but definitely a more difficult than average lab. Congratulations on giving it a shot. I hope you learned something from doing it. We'll see you in the next lesson.